Hey everybody, welcome back to DDJ's Inferno, the weekly live stream where we discuss issues relevant to men in MGTOW. I'm DDJ, and I'm joined today by my Q&A thought, Lily Even32, and my guest, Chuck SmithFix Smith. And before we get started, I just wanted to take a couple minutes to do a little light housekeeping. For those of you who don't know, Twitter recently suspended my account. So these were the free speech cucks, the trad cucks there, who always talk about how they don't want to, limit anybody's speech. But apparently today, I guess, they changed their mind. So I got suspended this morning. I don't know if it's permanent or not, but that's what's going on there. And then as far as, give me just a second here. I want to balance out my sound real quick. Make sure that we are all on the same page. All right, so, but yeah, as far as the Twitter is concerned, for till future notice, I am suspended. I don't know if it's permanent or not, but it is what it is. Also, the audio book is going to be coming out. Hopefully by the end of the month. I had to kind of drop the ball a little bit on that. There was a lot of stuff going on with the audiobook as far as the, all the red pill coin stuff and the drama associated with that. I had to put that on the back burner. So I wanted to kind of touch base there. In addition, my website is currently being updated and the new website should be going live in the next few weeks. And it's going to be the same web address, which is misandry-today.com. And you will be able to go to that website as a landing page. It'll have all my social media, as well as links to my video content. Now, the reason this is important is because if the Twitter suspension is permanent, or if YouTube for some reason decides to target me, this website will be a freestanding location where you can find all my content. In addition to that, I am currently working on developing a merchandising line. So if there's things that you guys want to see, like shot glasses or hoodies or specific things you want to see, shoot me an email at misandry.happens@gmail.com. And then finally, with things calming down a little bit, I can actually get back to my video production schedule, start making new videos for my Her Story series again. Then in addition, I've also got a 3-part series about Don't Trust What You Can't Verify. The first video of that is already out. And no, Oslo, I'm not going to be selling Cialis. Sorry, I know you're disappointed, but I won't be shilling Cialis or Monofil or Vagisil for those who need it. So I apologize. There will not be a Misandry Today version of Vagisil. So yeah, so with that in mind, today's stream, we talk a lot on the TFM show a lot about the collapse. We haven't really talked a lot about it recently, but we've talked about, the possibility of a collapse happening and, kind of what to do in those set of circumstances. And I know Rot Dog has, he's done a lot of work with TFM on talking about the collapse and how to prepare for it. And I know we have a fair amount of preppers in the MGTOW community. So I wanted Chuck SmithFix Smith to come online and talk to us about prepping and kind of give us kind of a 101 sort of prepping primer, just to kind of, and also to talk about some of the things about prepping that really aren't discussed in kind of most of the 101 level conversations. So with that in mind, Chuck, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, say hi to everybody. Chuck, are you there? I think Chuck's mic has died.
Have you got me there now?
You are live, yes. Welcome.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to have to leave the unmute to you. The set of headphones I'm using is wired, and they don't give me a tone whenever I mute out.
That's okay. I can do that on my end. That's fine.
Yeah, if there's occasionally a click or a pop, I just did some redneck upgrades to this set of headphones to stop the cord from popping. and giving us feedback. A bunch of some duct tape. It's amazing what you can do with duct tape. Now, there's a
You know,
prepper item you need to have.
right, right. 100-mile-an-hour tape is absolutely important.
Oh, that
So
sounds
I
like an
also
army
wanted,
guy there.
there you go. And, again, just before we get started, I just wanted to say, recognize, thank you, Plumber, for hanging out today. Oslo, good to see you. Nemo, always great to have you. Grizzly is in the house. That's awesome. Um, Ikwan, great to have you. So thank you guys for showing up today. So Chuck, when we talk about prepping, can you tell me uh, why should anybody be considering prepping to your mind?
A lot of us, the prepper movement really blew up about 10 years ago, actually, and became because of, well, frankly, because of Barack Obama, and everybody saying this guy is really going to blow up the country, and people started paying more attention to the economics of what was going on and the absolute mathematical impossibility that our financial system is sustainable. And so, everybody got more because of the economics than anything else. People began to become concerned. I mean, whenever you run into hyperinflation and the things that have happened all through history with fiat currencies, the United States dollar is a dead man walking. Now, what
Right.
we didn't know at that time was to what extent our government would turn around and break their own laws, would go on a war rampage to quote stimulate the economy via the central bank printing more and more and more and more money.
Are you
Um,
talking about like the QE 1 through 4, or what are we talking about?
well, whenever quantitative easing, when that term came
Right.
out, everybody was like, "What? Well, it's just another word for printing money. That's all.
Right.
That's
Right.
all it is. Just the Fed printing money, buying bonds, investing directly into the stock market, to keep the stock market looking good. The plunge protection team being created so that whenever the stock market starts to tank because the stocks are all overvalued, then but the bottom line is quantitative easing is nothing more than the Fed printing money with no controls by our government whatsoever. They can do whatever they want. They'll never be audited. The minute they start threatening an audit, the Fed turns to them and says, "We'll tank your economy." And at
Right.
the upper levels of our government, they do understand how money is created, and that threat is a valid threat. They can
Right.
destroy our economy and send us into um, Zimbabwe will be nothing, or Venezuela will be nothing compared to what would happen to the United States if the Fed felt like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and bring you down, and they
It's
can
kind of
bring.
funny.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you bring up Venezuela. For those people that haven't seen the most recent news out of Venezuela, ZeroHedge.com just put an article up just the other day that I posted to my Twitter before it was suspended. That basically that Venezuela has turned into road warrior. Like there are biker gangs in Venezuela roaming around, terrorizing the countryside. It is to say it's a shit show is being kind to shit shows. But to kind of take it a different direction, Chuck, how long have you been prepping? Talk about your
Oh,
prepping background.
well, I started looking at preps about 10 years ago. And whenever I
Okay.
became really politically aware, I mean, back in the day, I was a stone cold, quote, conservative, Christian conservative, and bought into all the lies of our government. And I happened to get in a conversation with a kid, I call him a kid, about 35 years old up the street. And he started asking me questions that I couldn't answer, really honestly answer without
Right.
just the pat lines. So I started doing a little bit of reading, research, started getting out on the internet and hunting up down the truth, and I realized I'd been lied to my entire life. And then I started really studying economics because most people they really do not understand basic economics. And so I started studying what was going on. How is money created? What is the basis for how money or how food gets to our homes? infrastructure, all kinds of things. It all came together about the same time that the Tea Party went from being a nonpartisan, we've had enough of our government, to a Republican construct,
Right.
as always happens with movements. They
Oh,
all
yeah.
movements seem
They all
they
get
get
co-opted.
be
Right.
it right down to even the militias. Those of you who are listening who are part of a militia or considering starting your own little militia group, be very, very careful. If you don't know these people, I mean really know these people, if you haven't met their family, if you haven't seen their kids, been to their house, don't even think about being involved with a militia today unless everybody brings their children and you have get-togethers and stuff. Everything gets
Well,
corrupted very.
you're talking about intentional communities, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean,
intentional
it's
and
more,
even
yeah, yeah. It's more than just a militia. It's more like they're intentional communities, or at least sub communities within communities. I think that's kind of where you're headed with
right.
that, at least a little bit.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I'm for the neighborhood.
right,
I mean, I have a little different prepper philosophy than most do. You can't, if you're a prepper, you can't hide the fact that you're a prepper unless you're so insular that you don't have any friends, family. Everybody's going to know. And
right,
when it gets rough, and it has to at some point, whether it's we picked a fight with Russia and China and North Korea, and pick any number of countries that we're doing our best to start World War III with. Technically, we're in World War III now. If you look at the number of places that we're at war, it is inevitable that these chickens are going to come home to roost. The
right,
dollar's going to die. China, Russia, everyone's starting to divest themselves from the dollar. They're getting away from the petrodollar. More and more countries are saying to hell with America's stranglehold on the economics of the world, where we act like every transaction America gets a piece of. And
right.
people
Well,
are
let me ask you
tired.
this:
Uh-huh.
if we switch gears a little bit, let's focus on for people that have never prepped before. What is your
Mm.
advice to them to set themselves up for prepping? What should be their goals as far as food storage is concerned? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, let's go 3, 3, and 3 first. Okay. You can last 3 days without water,
Okay.
3 weeks, or I'm sorry, 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So air, well, we really don't have to worry about that one too much. But the first three is water. Everybody, granted, you must have weapons and all to defend yourself. If things get bad, you're going to have to be able to defend yourself. But I don't spend a lot of time on that, simply because the discussion of which caliber's better and which brand and all that, it doesn't matter. Find
Well,
what you
it's a
like.
dick measuring contest at that point, right?
Absolutely,
Right,
absolutely. So I don't bother with the firearms part of it. Be proficient with whatever you decide to have, and have enough. Okay.
right.
And in my opinion, if you can pick up your ammunition by yourself, you don't have enough. So
Right.
that aside, whenever we start talking about, to me, the one thing that people don't realize is how fast the water will disappear.
Okay.
When if it's let's say we have a grid down and our grid is unprotected, they have yet to do anything to protect our power grids. There's
Okay.
any number of ways. It's very fragile. There's any number of ways an electrical grid can go down for a major metro and stay down for an extended period of time.
Well, we
It's
saw
a
that with
very
Hurricane Katrina, and we've also seen it with some of the wildfires in California. So yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
it's a very easy point of attack by either false flag or real attack. And either way, whenever they don't have to that tank, all of your water that you're getting out of your faucet is gravity fed from those tall tanks. They don't have pumps sitting there keeping 35 pounds per square inch in the pipes all the time. They pump it up, into that tank. And because of the design of them, like a funnel, it uses barometric pressure, and that supplies 35 pounds of consistent, steady water pressure throughout the city. When the electric goes down, the water's not going up into the tower anymore. And it can be a matter of hours before you'll turn the water on and it's not there.
Okay.
And when you don't have water, now you have 3 days, okay, to find more potable, drinkable water. Not to mention enough water for just the very basic of hygiene to keep, the fallout from not having enough water is going to be disease very quickly. And unsanitary water is will follow very, very quickly. So water to me is the first thing that people ought to look at. The first thing. You can go down to Walmart and buy enough and have 2-3 weeks of food real easily. And I'll get into long-term storage of foods and how to pack it away for 20 years, no loss of nutrition, on a budget. But if you don't have water, that will kill your family faster than anything.
Let me ask you this: if let me jump in here real quick. So, when you talk about 3 days worth of water, how much water are we talking about for an adult male for 3 days, for 72 hours?
That's going to depend. I've never bothered trying to break that down so much as look at. You can assume that 15 gallons of water would be the very minimum a day per person in the family. That's as close as I've ever come to be, and this is including water for a family that if you have children that are going to have to be bathed, if you have an infant, you're gonna have to deal with the diapers.
So this is going to be water for more than just drinking. You're talking about water for utility,
yes.
for washing and cleaning, and okay, just to make sure.
And because you can have drinking water, but if your hygiene falls apart, if in very short order, people need to bathe, things need to be washed. And this water can be recycled to a certain extent, and I'll get into water purification as well. How to I can take sewer water. Literally, I can take water out of a sewer and make it drinkable. Not a real problem.
That doesn't sound too appetizing.
But it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of investing now in the possibility. So let's stay with water. Let's say the grid goes down. Now, me personally, I've got 3 1,500-gallon water tanks. I've got a house that I live in now, and I've got a rent house across the street. Both have 1,500-gallon water tanks that fill from rainwater. And it's not 1,500 gallons when you're talking about gardening. People think it's for a garden. Now, let me tell you, here in Texas, 1,500 gallons for gardening is not that much water. It's for drinking. It's for survival purposes. And when it comes off of the shingles, okay, and goes into the tanks, it's going to have hydrocarbons in it, bird dung, all kinds of stuff, right? It might as well be sewer. So if you're going to drink that water, first it has to be filtered and purified. Well, I encourage people as part of their preps to have charcoal. Cheap charcoal, not the match light stuff, the cheapest charcoal you can buy. Buy a bunch of bags of the stuff and throw it somewhere and just let it sit there. I personally have mine in 55-gallon barrels. Been sitting there now for probably 5-6 years. But all you do is crush it up. You take a 5-gallon bucket. You put sand in the bottom of the bucket. You put a lady's hose, or pool filters are very, very good. These diatomaceous filters that they have for swimming pools. Find somebody who has a pool service company, and they throw those things away all the time. They're basically a bag, and they use diatomaceous earth as a filter for the water. Now, diatomaceous earth has a lot of fantastic uses, but the ones for pool is not the same diatomaceous earth that we would use to kill bugs, in our yard. It's not as fine. But you get those filters from them used, clean them out, put it in the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket so that it stops your charcoal and sand from going through. You put a layer of fine sand over that, a layer of charcoal, about, say, 2 inches of sand, about 4 inches of charcoal, top that off with some coarser sand. Run your water through it, and this will pull out all of the hydrocarbons. A lot of the larger pathogens will be trapped as well. And then everybody needs, if you don't have a Berkey, and I own three, a Berkey is Berkey's a British company that discovered that if they were to impregnate silver inside of a porous porcelain cylinder and ran water through it, it killed all the pathogens. And in India, the Christian, I still call them mercenaries, but missionaries
Sure.
were over there, and they were dying like flies until they developed the Berkey filter. And they sent them over there, and they could take the water out of the river, run it through the Berkey filter, and drink it, no problem. Silver is an absolute amazing metal. It kills pathogens like going out of style. If it's
Okay.
we can talk about that. We may not have enough time to get into all of these things,
Right.
but
Right. Well,
I'm
let's and speaking of time, let's move from water to food. Talk to me about 3 weeks. You said 3 weeks without food. So talk to me about food preps and nutrition and that sort of thing.
very easy. You can starve to death with a full belly. If you were to go out and you buy rice, beans, oats, all the different kinds of lentils. By the way, buy at least three different kinds of beans, just because of the amino acids are all different. You want to have a variety in your diet. If you put them in 5-gallon buckets and store them, within a year, their nutritional value begins to fall. Within 2 years, you might as well be eating paste. You'll starve to death with a full belly. Now, if we can stop light and oxygen from them being exposed to light and oxygen, those two things break down the nutritional value of anything and everything, especially foods. So go on the internet and you buy five, or there are actually 6-gallon. You want to look for the 6-gallon Mylar bags. Mylar is the same material that you see on these balloons, these metallic looking balloons. It's the same thing.
Okay. Right.
It's metallized plastic coating, so to speak. You buy these bags, you go to Home Depot, and the cheapest buckets you can buy are the ones with their brand name on them. They're more advertising than anything else, so it's a lost leader. They cost about $2.50 a piece to buy a bucket from Home Depot. And you put that bag in there, you put your beans, your rice, whatever, in there, and then you put oxygen absorbers. I call them oxygen depleters. I sent you a link
You mean like
through email.
like the vacuum things where you vacuum out all the air? Is that what you're talking about? Where you
Well,
make a
they
vacuum
do.
inside it?
Well, what they are is iron oxide. And when
Okay.
you open them, they'll come in a packet of, and you can get them in all kinds of sizes and numbers. I recommend only buying, for most cases, one size, the 1500 cc. And what they are is iron oxide. When you open that bag, the iron oxide begins to rust, which is the same thing as fire. It just sucks all the oxygen out until it runs out of oxygen, and then the reaction stops. And when you put your oxygen depleter in there, and you got your food, and you throw your oxygen depleter in, and you seal it up, burp it, so you push out as much air as you can. You seal that bag up, and don't close the lid. Wait to make sure you've got a good seal. If it doesn't pull down, if it doesn't vacuum itself down, do it again. Now you throw
Okay.
a lid on it, and all the bucket's for is to protect the mylar. Now I'm a big advocate of oats because it's very, very healthy, but it's very, very bulky. On oats is one of the few things that I don't put in a 5-gallon bucket because it's so bulky. Man, you end up with just walls full of 5-gallon buckets if you're storing oats. Just put it in the bag and then store it up high enough and out of the way. Milk, people need to have milk, several kinds of lentils, which are all kinds of beans, black, white, pintos. You need to have salt, sugar, plenty of sugar and plenty of salt. All right, salt is necessary for your health. Sugar is something that you can not only use for your own enjoyment, but for a trade item. And while we're on that, chocolate. You can buy bulk chocolate. You can buy 50-pound bags of chocolate and store it away. Dehydrated milk, in particular for the children, so that they get the vitamin D that they're going to need.
Okay.
I mean, I did a video a long time ago, and I've been digging around through all of my files, and I can't find the original versions of my videos that when I took my YouTube channel down to try and straighten stuff out in YouTube for my business, I'm missing a lot of videos. I walked through my house and to show people why they should join a prepper group. And and I'm not a hiding prepper. I walked through my house and showed, here's 55-gallon barrels of wheat. Now, if you're gonna buy wheat, buy it in bulk. Buy it in large bags. One resource everyone should look for in their area, if they're near a large metro, you're going to have Mormons. Find the Mormons. Find out where the bishop's warehouse or storehouse is, whatever they want to call it, and you can save quite a bit of money by going and buying bulk from them. Not only that, you can walk in there and they have a canning facility where you can can your own. If you want to put things in number 10 cans, that's the looks like a gallon tin can.
Right, the big
and
ones.
you buy the cans from them and can sit there and can up whatever you want in cans. They have the oxygen depleters there to put in that can as well. I like Mormons. I'm not a religious man, but I like Mormons. I mean, they're real down to earth kind of folks. And I started several prepper groups. And we'd take my trailer up there and literally be coming back with a ton of grains and sugar and all kinds of stuff. We just made a shopping list. Everybody give us some money. We'd go down and pick it up. And then we'd have packing parties, get together of an evening, and we'd have all these 5-gallon buckets sitting out, everybody ready to rock and roll. And we would pack up 5-gallon buckets for an entire evening, just getting our preps ready. Now, I don't think that someone can have too much in the way of food.
Right.
Simply because if you have enough time, and this is the hardest thing, people just don't get around to it and don't think it's going to be necessary. And some guys like me may be thinking, well, I've got mine. Well, take a look at how long they've been. Some of mine age back now to about 8 years on my stored dry goods, and they're and granted, I've got a 20-year window, but they've not all been kept temperature controlled. So extremes in temperature, in particular heat, is going to reduce that. So I'm looking at my preps now and saying which ones do I need to start, considering beginning to maybe lose a little bit because they've been exposed to Texas heat in the summer. So I'm figuring I'll take about 5 years off the total storage, which gives me 15 years before they begin really losing nutritional value. But that's how you store food away quickly and easily. I'll make a video again one of these days on how to do this, how to seal the bags. You can buy a sealer, costs about $100, or you can take a carpenter's level, one of those 24-inch
Right.
carpenter's level, the metal ones.
Right.
They've got these ridges on one side and an iron. And you just put that iron on high and you put that thing on there and run it across that Mylar bag, makes a beautiful seal. Nice, big, fat, beautiful seal. I don't know if you
Okay.
can include it in the info I've sent you. I sent you a few links earlier where
Yeah,
people can
I'll
go.
put that in the description
And
once it gets uploaded to YouTube.
sure, if anybody would like to, well, kind of hard to contact me right now because I've been so busy. Well, they can contact me through you. Maybe we do this
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
on specifics. But like I say, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out once you have the basic idea. It take the average person about 45 minutes to figure out, okay, what size oxygen depleter should I use for this size packaging? Spices, of course, you want to get them, but if they're not packed in Mylar, they lose their potency and it turns into powder, be it pepper or whatever. Um, a lot of preppers that I know have gone into learning how to make beer and then getting a stiller so that they can make their own booze as a trade item.
Right.
Not me, not me. But my philosophy is let your neighbors know you're a prepper. Talk to them about what's going on in this world. They may look at you today like you're a nut. Okay? And my neighbors did and do, some of them, still around me.
Sure.
But they
Sure.
also are the same. They're also the same folks that come over occasionally, knock on my door, and they've got a sick kid, and they want some colloidal silver for whatever malady their child has come up with. Let's let's go to colloidals. Let's go to medicinals for a moment. Now, there are a lot of things that people can do other than bandages and things like that to have a first aid kit.
Before we shoot over there, let me touch on something else that I think is somewhat important as well. If for people that are in an urban area or people that are near a big city, I know a lot of preppers talk about storing their preps like out in the country or away from a big city, and then using a bug out bag to get them from wherever they're at to their bug out location or to their intentional community location. What are your thoughts about that? What kind of feedback would you say? I mean, for those people that don't live out in the country or they don't live in tight knit communities, but they may have an intentional community or they may have a bug out location.
Well, if you're going to go to the country, if you're going to put yourself in a compound type situation, you better have enough people to have 24-hour perimeter guard. And I don't mean one guy sitting on the back porch. I mean, you have to protect a perimeter. When
Right.
things get bad, I have met so many people who say that they're a patriot, now this and that, and I start talking to them about preps, and well, I got a gun, so I don't have to worry about it. Now, you talk about somebody who gets on my bad side real fast. That's a land shark. They're just going to take from someone else. When I was starting prepper groups, I would have people come to my home first, and I would show them my preps and say, so you don't have to worry about exposing what you might have. You can see I don't need a damn thing you have. Now, what do you have and where are you? And when all they had was guns and they didn't show a lot of interest in investing some of their income into food and preps, I dropped them like a hot rock. They were not invited into the group. One guy, my wife heard me tell this one guy, if I ever see your face again, I will drop you. I ever see you when things are bad, something to that effect, I will drop you on sight. And I would. The man was a potential land shark.
Right.
But if the idea of bugging out is fine if you can get there. But if you have neighbors around you, when the fall of Mubarak is a good example, the whole country went into chaos. The police were looting.
Was that
And
that was Europe, or what was that? I'm not Europe. I mean Egypt. Egypt. I mean.
Mhm.
Okay, go on.
And when Mubarak, sorry, when the police and everyone, it just total chaos. The people blocked the streets. The neighbors blocked the streets with cars, and no one was allowed in. This is our neighborhood. Why are you coming here? And they were armed. Worked for them.
Right. Well, and you
Things
see
got-
this. I mean, this was in Mexico. You've seen parts of Mexico where the communities wanted to keep out the cartels, and so they would have armed guards, and they would put the city on, or the village or wherever, on lockdown. And I mean, I know that's a huge. I mean, it's an issue today. So yeah.
And that's the thing about look at your neighborhood. I hate to say this, but some people are in an absolutely untenable position. If you're living in an apartment, you better make some friends, and you better make really good friends with them because you're going to have to trust them. What my idea when I started prepper groups was to match country preppers with city preppers. The city preppers, they had money. Country people tend to not have that much money, to be honest. If you really look at it, people who live in the country, the land is cheaper, housing's cheaper, but it's not really that much cheaper to live in the country because of what it costs to go back and forth and all that.
Sure.
But they do have room. They do have, or the poor side of town, as I call my area of Crowley, Texas. We have great big yards here, but the rest of my South Fort Worth town here, that's might as well be Fort Worth. It's so tied all together now. Nobody has any yard. I mean, you can stand against the wall of one house and urinate on the next one. Now, how are they ever going to have any sustainability? They can't. But where I am, all you have to do is turn every front and backyard into a garden. The average yard around here is a half acre. The average land, the plot that our houses are on, is a half an acre. Well, a little less.
Right.
but they're big lots, old houses with pier and beam that we can crawl up underneath and repair, which is another thing I like about these old houses. But if things get really bad, if you can't depend on your neighbor, anybody more than 5 minutes away from you is not going to be of help to you. You can have a million Facebook friends. You can have all kinds of relationships on the internet or in the next town, and it will be absolutely worthless to you. The guy next door is all you have to depend on, is all you have. If you're in an apartment, you need to start looking at, and first of all, are you even going to be able to get there?
Right. Well,
Lord
you were
help us.
saying, yeah, you
Go
were
ahead.
saying you were matching city preppers with country preppers. So were you saying, if I understand you correctly, just to take that to the logical conclusion, it sounds like basically the city preppers who have the money store in the country preppers location, and then the city preppers bug out to that location, assuming that they can as a
Absolutely.
small group? Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, and the country people living in the country tend to have a little bit more skills. They tend to be more working class people. But you can teach a bookkeeper to, and I talk bad about bookkeepers. That's one of those terms I use whenever I'm looking down my redneck nose
Sure.
at Americans today. Is what the hell use do I have for a damn bookkeeper? Unless what he can pull guard duty.
Right.
But we need people with calluses on their hands, with skills, who can weld, who can rototill, who know something about gardening, who have some medical, who've taken the time to learn a skill that adds to this community. And what I was doing was matching people up, just getting the introductions done, building those relationships. And those relationships today are still there. Some of them looser, some of them tighter, but it gave people the opportunity to meet each other in a venue where somebody had said, I'm going to walk them through my house and check these people out, because preppers by nature, because of the way we've been talked about and denigrated, we tend to be a little insular. And just to go and
MGTOW the same way, so we get it.
Yeah, we so how am I? Somebody put something out there. I'm starting a prepper group. First off, buddy, I'm going to be coming to your house or inviting you to mine. But first, if somebody else was starting it, first I'd want to go to his house. And if he says, no, we're going to meet at someplace for dinner, I say, yeah, really, right. I'm all in. But whenever someone says, everyone who comes to this group will have been vetted by me, so I can look them in the eye, and I'm not necessarily a nice man. I can be extremely blunt. I'm all about helping. I'm all about helping people. But get on my bad side where I think that you're not going to be, and I say you, sorry for using that terminology.
General you, yeah.
Where someone's not going to be interested in working with others. You help me, I help you. We all survive. Right. Because if we don't work together, we're done. We're fragmented and easy pickings. Right. Back to bug out, if the idea is to bug out, it better not be far. I have a little house down at a lake near me, and water is about a 15-minute walk from that house. Okay. But can I get there? I have stored food down there. It's nothing fancy. This is not like I'm a rich man. I mean, this place was really cheap, right? It's kind
Sure,
of a
sure.
depressed area down there, and the house needs a lot of work. It's damn sure nothing special. We call it the cabin. Speaking of which, I need to go down and put a new roof on the place. But um, can I get down there to it? And I have enough food stored down there for that little, my neighbors there, because they're really widespread out. Hell, I could
Hmm.
feed them for months. And that's another thing. If someone takes me out because of my preps, all of my other neighbors will starve. I'm the guy who's got, the 55-gallon barrels full of red and white wheat. I've got the grain mill to grind it up to bake bread. I've got the one house in the neighborhood that's on propane. Everyone else is on natural gas. The house I'm now renting out, which was my house. I'm living in my wife's house over here across the street now, but my house, there's 4 propane tanks behind that house.
Right.
That house does not have to buy propane for upwards of 4 years if that propane is used judiciously, but it'll be the one house that without electric, without gas, without anything else can bake bread. You know, really? Let me. Who would people defend?
Right.
Who people
What it,
want to protect?
well, you're in, and because you're in Texas, obviously there's a fair amount of sunlight. What's your views on solar and things like that?
I have the battery. I've got a fellow I spoke to recently. Now I mentioned, and you mentioned that I retired from the fight a couple of years ago and kind of took a break. I bought me a boat, spent a lot of time just trying to relax and decompress because this stuff
Sure.
will absolutely drive you mad.
Right.
24-hour a day radio during all the crises with the Bundys and all that. It will absolutely, it can drive you to
Well, you
drinking
burn
drugs.
out.
You
Well, and
burn
this
out.
is, and let me touch on something here too. You bring up an important point. You know, when you're in the middle of conflict and that conflict lasts for an extended period of time, it shuts you down. It burns you out. It burns you out psychologically. It burns you out physically. You start getting ill. I mean, there's physical ailments that are involved in that, and that's one of the reasons why. I'm speaking specifically to my audience here, more to them than to you, Chuck, because I mean you know this to be true, is that MGTOW's not a war. It's not like for anybody who thinks that they want to live in this conflict mindset 100% of the time, you will burn out and you will die an early death just because of the stress and the hypertension and all the drama that gets associated with it. So it's important to make sure that when you're whatever lifestyle you choose, whatever way you choose to go your own way, try to make sure that your stress level stays particularly low or at least within some healthy uh like a healthy range, because it'll burn you out. And so that's why you hear me joke about when people start saying stupid things like MGTOW is war and all this other stuff. You have to be able to decompress. You have to be able to rest. And so taking that time off is psychologically healthy, it's physically healthy, and it's absolutely necessary. So I'm going to jump off my soapbox here real quick and
Oh,
go ahead and Chuck.
no, not at all. For the guys in MGTOW, I've just now really become aware of your movement, and I'm interested. I see the points. I think a lot of stress could be taken off guys if they just want to, do the posting, do the talking, and just shrug and say, "Well, what? All we have to do is just disengage."
Right. And that's pretty much what
Don't
yeah, exactly.
yeah, just disengage, and we don't need to play your game. I mean, we can always go fishing, and the women can bitch, but you know,
Exactly.
when it comes to what I was doing with, and it's in your face threat to me.
Right.
I am I am more today afraid for the future of my grandchildren than I've ever been before. because
Right.
several years ago, my wife will attest to this. My gosh, must be 5 years ago. Anyway, at least I said the most dangerous president's going to be the next one if he's a Republican, because the resistance will disappear.
Right.
And if anyone looks at what's going on in our country today, what has changed? Are we not at war in everywhere that we were? Plus, are we not
Ye-
trying to
Yeah, I think
hammer
that's a
Russia and China and force them into war with us?
yeah. I
Uh,
think that you're going to find that in this particular community, a lot of people have understood that Trump has really not been the change that most people would have hoped he would have been, and that he's just kind of continuing along with a lot of the same policies that
yeah.
some of the other people have. But I think the big advantage, the only main advantage that many people, at least in this community and in this audience, see in Trump, is that he prevented Hillary from getting in office, and preventing a
Well,
feminist from being the most powerful person in the free world is probably a good thing.
well, that's why we all gave him money. That's why we were
Right.
all over social media and
Right.
everywhere fighting for this man, was to keep Hillary out.
Right.
Um, Now we've accomplished that. Now let's sit and look at reality of what's going on. Let's not fall for the cult of personality. But
Yeah. And yeah,
let's let's not go
these
too
people.
far into the
Yeah.
politics on this
Let
show, because
let me jump over on another subject as well, and I agree with you there. Um, we were talking about natural antibiotics and medical. You said, sometimes the neighbors will bring their kids over, and you'll give me the colloidal silver or whatever. Talk to me about prepping for potential medical needs.
well, if people do, I spent 2 years studying colloidal silver. A friend of mine called me and said, "Man, I've come across this stuff called colloidal silver, and it's da 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 da." And I had one word: bullshit. Okay, and just straight up told him, this is bullshit. So I went in to prove him wrong. It was somebody that I liked, and I love to win an argument. So I
Yeah,
said,
I know people like that. They get a chip on their
shut my
shoulder, and they have to prove you wrong. I get it. Go on.
Well, no, it was the other way around. I was
No,
the
that's what I'm saying.
asshole.
Yeah, you were the asshole. I know. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. You were the asshole. You had the chip on your shoulder. You had to prove them wrong. I know people like that. I'm just saying. Go on.
I'm big on being right, but I have this. The one thing I do have saving grace is being able to eat crow with grace.
Right.
And so I started looking into colloidal silver. And the more I studied it, the more I looked into the historical precedents. I sent you an article that I had on my blog. Um, I don't know how, until I put my blog back up, I don't know how you might be able to share that article, but it's fairly concise. And if people want to, before the end of the show, I'll give folks my email address. Um, I'll hold off on the cell phone because I don't want to get hammered. Number one, if anybody ever calls me, folks, I'll give my cell phone number. But if I don't answer, because I get so many advertising calls, I do not answer. Leave a message.
Well,
You know,
let's do this. Let's because I sometimes get a lot of views on my videos. Let's do
uh
this. Let me I'll put your email address in the description of the video when people
or
when I upload to YouTube,
better,
and then people can
better yet,
email you.
I'll join you on Facebook. I haven't joined your Facebook group and
Oh,
page there.
I'm no longer on Facebook, so don't that's not going to help you.
Oh, really? Did they kill your Facebook page?
Yeah, there was a little bit of drama there, so
Ways. Oh,
gotta
ways.
love
Well,
social justice warriors. It is what it is. But I'll put your email on the description of the video, and then people
but
can reach out to you
here's
directly.
here's the thing about colloidal silver. Um, a true colloidal silver for the inside of the body is it's a wide spectrum antibiotic. If it is an aerobic bacteria, in other words, it has an enzyme that it uses to respirate. Just the presence of silver disables that. These are what we know for scientific fact. That enzyme is disabled by the presence of silver. But when people go to buy a colloidal silver, you'll see stuff at the health food store that's silver this, silver that. but very few of them will claim to be a colloidal silver. And many that do are lying to you. If you buy a colloidal silver and you pour it in a glass and look at it, and it does not have a yellow tinge, it is not a colloidal silver. What you have there is an ionic silver, which is great for the outside of the body. Now, um, I'll send you a link at the end of the show. There's one
Okay.
unit I have found where people at home can make a good colloidal silver for themselves. Now, all honestly, if somebody buys through that link, I'm going to get a kickback from Mario Savaldi. But
it's not an InfoWars link though, is it?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
If you look at the per ounce cost,
Right.
what they're selling colloidal silver for, I give mine away. My neighbors don't buy my colloidal silver. I don't sell it. On the internet, I have to charge people. I used to use it as a way to, well, I tried to make a few bucks, but with the shipping and everything, and I won't send less than a quart. It's just not worth the trouble. $1.75 an ounce. Whenever you look at what everybody's charging for this stuff, and it's absolutely insane. But I'll supply a link to. It's called the SilverLung generator, and if y'all want to help a prepper get back on air, fine. Buy through my link to Mario's unit, because I had him on air. The only company that never lied to me. And I drug him over the coals because I was not a believer. And this guy actually called me. And this is the owner of the company, called me to discuss it because I'd made a video about how good it was. And he called me to point out a couple of errors I made. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "This is Mario Savaldi. I'm the owner of and the developer of the SilverLungs generator." And he spent hours. He just passionate about it, as passionate as I had become about it. But it's a wide spectrum antibiotic, and I'm hoping that if you can't share the article that I wrote for folks, that we figure out some way to get it to them. Colloidal silver truth. I wrote another one that was about Ebola, colloidal silver and Ebola, where I put the actual studies by the Air Force and the Army did studies on colloidal silver to fight Ebola, and both of those studies found that colloidal silver would stop Ebola from reproducing.
When were these studies done?
Pardon?
When were these studies done?
These studies were done 10 years ago.
Okay.
But you know what? There has been no follow-up. Here's the argument against any natural. I just found another. I was digging through my files, and there's another one on cancer. I don't get into a lot of the medical stuff. There are people like Natural News who I would prefer people to go there and do their own research. But when it comes to this one subject of colloidal silver, I have too many people. I have a lieutenant colonel up here who had been fighting a respiratory infection for months. They didn't know what it was. They kept giving him all kinds of stuff. He was sick. And I'm putting in a new shower in his house, and he's hacking and coughing. And I said, Colonel, what is that cough? He's a two-time Purple Heart winner. I mean, he's a hero. And I said, what is that cough? And he said, we don't know. And it was making him so ill. I took him colloidal silver and a nebulizer so he could breathe it into his lungs. 4 days. Damn. 4 days. Gone.
Okay.
He just got, and then he turned around and got pneumonia and sent me a text, or his wife sent me a text saying that they wanted me to bring them their nebulizer died, and was asking if I had another nebulizer they could borrow. And he had stopped using it. He got well and stopped using it. Well, he got pneumonia and was in the hospital, and she wanted a nebulizer and I said, well, sure, I've got 2 or 3 in here. I'm a prepper. By the way, folks, 1 is none. 2 is 1. Own 3 of everything that's essential. And not only that, but you get to loan it to your friends and neighbors. And so I ran over, took him another bottle of colloids. And again, he gets home with a whole big shitload of antibiotics. I asked him, did they say what germ, what bacteria is it? No, they don't even know what bacteria they're fighting, and they just throw pills at you. They don't
Right.
even bother to stick it under a microphone,
Microscope.
a microscope, and identify it. They just, I mean, American medicine just is absolutely untrustworthy. So we have one that is iffy on viruses. Don't even ask me about cancer. I started getting into that study.
Yeah, let's not talk
Cancer,
about that today.
and that one ran me all through the mill, and I never could figure that one out. Now, I'm not a chemist and I'm not a doctor, but I have had, as a layman, I can study, and I'm horrendously curious.
So if I understand correctly, then what you're saying is it's your experience that colloidal silver is good as an antibiotic?
Absolutely. It is a wide range, non-toxic, no side effects. There are no side effects.
Well, can you drink too much of it? I mean, what's
Not
the
really. No.
Okay.
And the first thing people are going to run into is this blue man thing. And I address it in that article. If you put salt, when you're making colloidal silver, and you put salt in it, you're making silver chloride. And silver chloride is used in developing film. Well, great. So some moron who thinks he's going to make colloidal silver starts, feeding electrical current, through two silver rods and trying to make silver ions, which is all he was doing. And then he adds salt to it. He just created silver chloride. Massive sized particles, by the way.
Right.
And then drank gallons of the stuff. Well, these particles passed through the body, no toxicity, didn't make him sick, but the guy did have a lot of, here's oddly enough, a lot of his medical issues did go away, even screwing it up that bad. Silver's such a wonderful metal that it did help some of them, but the minute after he got such an accumulation in the dermis of the skin and the very, very fine blood veins in the dermis, in your skin, these great big particles of silver chloride that he created got hung up, and he walks out in the sun, boom, instant negative, and turned his ass blue.
That's funny.
It's a funny story, but people see that and they're like, oh my God. Well, let me tell you something. You're not going to drink enough of it, even no way. Now, do not drink ionic silver. If it's clear like water, when you go buy some silver, whatever, I really have to get my blog back online so I can put this stuff back out there. I have my favorite hate products out there that I just hate, and I could never, if I could sucker them into a phone conversation, maybe I will. I'm going to have to do a hit piece.
There you go. Well, let's do this. I mean, I think we get that you're a silver evangelist, and obviously I'll try to pass the information along. But before we go another hour on colloidal silver by itself, let's do this, because I want to be able to end the stream no later than the 2-hour mark. But I think we're at a part where we could probably open it up for Q&A. So, so for those people that are out here in the audience, if you have any questions, I haven't seen a lot of them recently. But if you have any questions, go ahead. If you're on a desktop or you are in on Twitch TV, you can redeem your Bukkake choke slams to get a question so that Lily can get those questions together to ask questions of myself or the guest. Or you can type in questions in caps and then who the question is to, myself or Chuck, and we can get those questions addressed there. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. And Lily, do we have any questions yet?
Yeah, we got a couple. Do you want me to start?
All right. Yeah, go for it.
All right. Question, I'm assuming it's for the guest. How long can you freeze vegetable seeds without them failing to grow when you plant them?
I don't recommend freezing seeds at all. And do not put, if you're going to store seeds, don't vacuum pack them and don't put oxygen depleters or anything like that. They are alive. The wheat, as an example, the wheat that I have stored is all non-GMO wheat, and it could germinate, except that when I put it in those 55-gallon barrels and a bunch of oxygen depleters to suck the oxygen out to keep them fresh, I killed them as far as being a living organism to be able to reproduce. Seeds will stay for up to 2 years with no problem at all. Buy your seeds. If you're storing seeds from whatever plant, research each one and how to properly store that seed. It's real quick to find it on the internet. You can go out and from any of the non-GMO companies, of which there are myriad, and buy seeds that are already packaged for long-term storage. They come in number 10 cans in my shed, which is another thing I've got to renew, and that's something before the end of the show, I need to remind everybody it's time for us to renew. I have number 10 cans, which look like a gallon paint can, and they have a myriad of seeds. And the particular company and brand, I can't remember offhand, but they were designed for Texas. They were specifically a blend for Texas. And looking at the list, it's like, oh yeah, I like this. And I bought them, and they've been in storage ever since. But,
Okay.
yeah, so freezing seeds, no. Each seed is different. Some can make a freeze for a long time. Some can't. But every seed is different. You're only going to plant so many crop. You're not going to plant, 50 different kinds of things. Decide what you're going to need and settle on those and concentrate on becoming a square foot gardener, a square inch gardener, on how to get the very most yield from the very smallest area and the most nutrition from what you're planting. Did that answer? Do you think that answered it?
I think so, yeah. Next question.
I think that was beautifully answered. Next question is for DDJ. Do you think the remnants of the government will force people into FEMA camps?
FEMA.
Thank you. And forcibly take all the resources civilians have stored?
No, I don't, because I don't think there's enough FEMA camps out there. I mean, I think that when things go sideways, it's especially on the left coast, I think things are just going to turn into an absolute shit show. And I mean, we're seeing it now. I mean, we're seeing societal breakdown right now on the left coast with the hepatitis outbreak. I just read yesterday there was a flu outbreak that's been killing 36 people a week. They're just having so many issues there that there's just not. I just don't see it happening. So
can I chime an opinion on that?
Yeah,
it's not necessary. It's not necessary to clear an area and depopulate is not necessary. The only people who are going to be, and I do believe, and I do know for a fact that we have these camps that have been renovated, prepped, and everything for no damn good reason except to be FEMA camps. They're going to be your leaders. They're going to be people that the government fears. The leaders who have the effort and ability, the ones that they feel threatened by, who can pull other people to them. That's who's going to go to the FEMA camps. The rest of everybody else, they're just going to die of their own ignorance and apathy. And they know it.
All right. Next question.
Okay, next question. It's actually from Helsing and Dulch for the guest. Have you ever heard of pemmican? And if so, is it viable for food storage?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Have you ever heard of pemmican? And if so, is it viable for food storage?
I heard the word pelican. I'm not hearing that.
Pemmican.
Pemmican. Oh, the accent strikes again. Yeah.
Oh, penicillin?
No.
Pemmican.
Pemmican. Yeah.
I'm sorry, not familiar with it. I'm thinking of pemmican for well, it's for canning. But so I'm kind of lost on that one. Now I understand. As preppers and people who are if there's people in the audience who have been preppers, I don't hold myself out as knowing everything. We can't. And there's always something new, always something that we don't know. And that's why we need to help each other, share information. Always, hey, look at this. What do you think about this? Um, and work together. So I'm not familiar with what the questioner is asking, but if he thinks there's, or he or she thinks there's validity to it, man, let me know.
All right.
I
Next
can
question.
tell you what it is if that helps.
Go ahead.
Please.
Okay, it's a concentrated mixture of fat and protein used as a nutritious food. It looks like, I don't know.
So we're talking about if memory serves from my much younger days, this is something that you can make for traveling food. I'm hoping that they're still online and can tell you if I'm right or wrong. Pemmican was a very fat-intensive travel food used extensively in the Yukon, of all places, for the trappers and the explorers, because it would hold for a long time, was very high in calorie, and yes, if that's a pemmican that they're talking about, I am familiar with it. I don't have a recipe for it, but then again, I'm not going to be traveling. I'm going to be fighting. Um, you
Okay.
pass my curb, and the war is on. But if that's the pemmican that they're referring to, I am familiar with it. But that's a survival food. By the time you find yourself out in the woods, in real survival, most people have no idea. They really have no idea how hard it is. Walk out in the woods for a week. Take enough food for one meal a day, and then try and figure out how to survive for the rest of the week, folks. It's a really good lesson in just how fragile your life is with the knowledge that you have.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question because I know there's a few of them coming in.
Okay, next question is for DDJ and the guest. Where is a good bug out location? How far out from cities are some better than others? Also, is it worthwhile to stockpile fuel?
No.
Fuel. Why don't you go ahead and address that, Chuck? Because I'll probably say the same thing you will.
You really can't stockpile fuel. It's too bulky. And everything, we don't know when the balloon's going to go up. We don't know when this is going to be happening. I mean, I will admit, and my wife will probably pull a hair lip when she listens to this, reminding me that I bought two 55-gallon barrels of gasoline about 12 years ago, because of what I saw as a coming crisis. And no matter how much stable you put in it and all that, no, keep your vehicles full. Be aware. Every morning, skip the drudge report. Go to the Liberty Mill. You have to punch it in as the Liberty Mill, and check articles there. There's a news agglomerator, kind of like Drudge, except it has some of the better websites. Michael Rivero, What Really Happened. .com is another guy who posts a lot of really good stuff. Stay aware of what's going on internationally and around you. The fuel, no. What was the other part of that question?
Where's a good bug out location?
Wow. Number one, find out where your military installations are and what they are. What is their potential for being a nuclear first strike? Is it worth the enemies, if you want to call them that, need to hit that location? If they're not if they can't strike another country, they're not a great threat. And look at the metros near you, depending on its cultural makeup. I don't like to use the word race because that is just silliness. What's the cultural makeup? What's the demographic, so to speak? I live on the outskirts of Fort Worth, and I'm very comfortable here because my particular little town which is all integrated. There's no, you drive through, you'd still think you were in Fort Worth, except when you hit my part of this little outside burg of the metro, um, we have big yards and old houses. But that's what you need to look at. Look at more of the demographics, and then decide what will these people. What do these people have going for them? And now
Well,
this
and
is
I
going
guess
to go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and my whole opinion is this. I think that as far as like a bug out location is concerned, if you have the ability to buy a piece of property or to have a piece of property out a ways from a metro location that has maybe a well for well water, that is basically it's got fertile soil. That would be the kind of place that I would be looking at, and I would be looking at being away from a lot of that stuff, assuming that you have the ability to go deal with that. And if you are part of an intentional community or you were looking to join an intentional community, then I would be looking for those types of things in that community as well.
Yes, but more importantly, believe me, there's people in your area. If you go and get on the internet and you start, looking around, you don't have to be brazen about it. Look around for prepper groups. There are still, well, a lot of it has disappeared. Look for websites and stuff that promote prepping, and see if they don't have something your region. But again, do your due diligence on any group you're going to join. I am so tired of everything being, what's the word I'm looking for? Infiltrated
by
our government. I trust no one. Who started this group is the first question you ought to ask. Who started this group? What's the vetting process to be part of this group? Because you don't want to expose yourself. At the same time, I'm very open about who I am. I don't want members of my group exposing themselves if they're in an untenable position and they know they're going to have to leave. They need to keep their mouth shut.
Well, I think we're tangenting off the question just a little bit, but I agree with you completely.
Yeah, it's easy. I can go on a rant. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I co-host a show with the guy who rants. I'm a ranter myself, so I know that you got to rein it in. All right, so Lily, next question.
All right, next question is also for the guest. Can you still prep decently without owning land or a house?
Without owning land and a house,
like an apartment, maybe?
No. The simple answer is no. This is why you have to, again, build community. Where do you live? Who's around you? How far is it to get outside of the impact area? And by impact area, I mean the major metro, where you get far enough where the yards become big yards and not cookie cutter, postage stamps with McMansions on them. How far do you have to go to get to people with calluses on their hands and the old houses and big yards? I love those neighborhoods. Better than the country, in my opinion, for survivability is the old 1950s neighborhoods where they have big yards and old houses. Those people you're going to find almost universally, they have roots, and you're going to find that they're a more common sense kind of folks. But if you're in an untenable position, you need to try and make relationships with people of like mind. Find them on Facebook, find them wherever you can, and try and build relationships where you can join them. And that if you're friends and you are accepted, be ready to invest. Don't just be another mouth. You have to do your part as well. They're not there to defend you,
right,
and promote your bloodline. Many bloodlines in this country need to die simply because they're too damn stupid to survive.
Right.
Don't be one of those.
Well, and the other thing
Invest.
too, for those people that are getting to the stream late, Chuck did talk about that a little bit, about like what to look for in prepper groups earlier on.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next question, Lily.
Next question. Are there any good online prepped courses for complete beginners?
Oof. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of 101 level stuff everywhere. Yeah, I mean, there's videos,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I know Big John from MGTOW is Freedom. For those guys who don't know, I know he's got a prepper channel. There's all kinds of YouTube stuff. In preparation for this stream, I mean, there's just so much stuff that's out. I mean, you can Google it and it's everywhere. So yes.
Yeah. It is there. There's an incredible amount of prepper information out there. While it is not in vogue like it was under Obama, it is. Believe me, there is a lot of information out there. Skim through it. Look for the ones who are unsponsored as well. The thinking outside of the box. Whenever anyone who is really big on the guns and bug out, just discard out of hand.
Okay.
Discard them out of hand, because all they're doing is looking for the moron, the green teeth that's gonna, oh, I'm Rambo. No, if they're concentrating on gardening, sustainability, everything but guns, if their concentration is too much towards the guns thing, just discard them out of hand. These people aren't worth your time. And that would be my advice.
All right. Next question.
Next question. We kind of sort of covered this a little bit before with seeds, but this one is slightly different. So, thoughts and opinions on freeze-dried goods?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I am so sorry. I should have mentioned that earlier. We were into the dried goods as far as grains and veggies and things like that. Now, when it comes to meat, I used to be of the opinion that the freeze-dried meats were expensive and not really worth it because I'd eat the neighbor's dog. Well, let me tell you, go out, and when you're doing your research on meat in particular, and I really think people ought to have meat in their diet at least 3 days a week, freeze-dried cannot be beat on a meal, cost per meal basis. Yes, when you first blush, it looks very expensive. It really does. I mean, you're going to spend $1,000 on a box that, the size of an oversized pillow. Really? But when you look at how much it takes to make a meal, because it's shrunk down so much, I am a firm believer in the freeze-dried for meats and meats only, not the complete meals. Not unless you have enough money. If you have plenty of money, fine. Buy the foo-foo stuff as far as I'm concerned. But if you buy just the meats, the chicken, the beef, the roast, all that stuff, that is the way to buy meat, in my opinion.
Chuck, I have a quick question for you on that,
Sure.
follow-up. How long does freeze-dried meat last?
Damn,
like how long is it?
It's longer. It's 25 plus. It even beats your dry goods. I mean, it really. I'll have to go, and if you'd like me to, after the show, I'll dig around and find out who I bought from. Mountain Home. We can go into that after the show. But I won't recommend something that I have not purchased myself, and for damn good reason, that I haven't done the research on. And if I'm going to spend money on it, believe me, I've looked at it.
Right. All right. Next question, Lily.
Okay. Question for the guest. To avoid surprises at night, how bad should it get before one plants landmines, booby traps, and Punjay sharpened
I
traps
saw
around
this
their
with
land?
fucking Oslo. Oslo, you troll.
How about just do like I do and rig yourself up a German Shepherd and a 10-pounder. Between the two of them, They'll compete on who's going to be the better guard dog.
There you go.
And then you just reach over and you grab your 40 Glock and go for it. How's that?
All right. Next question. I saw when Oslo actually asked that because I know it was Oslo. Anyway, go on. Next question.
All right. No. Next question. What is your opinion on aquaponics? Is it good for?
Wow. If you're in a very temperate area, I tried it, and I live in Texas. The minute the electric goes down in an aquaponics system, you lose it all of it. I spent $2,000 trying aquaponics, and in my opinion, except for if you have $25,000 plus to spend to build a building with a roof or at least a plastic, domain covering over it. I've been to successful aquaponics systems. Very, very expensive to build. Very, very dangerous to maintain. Electric goes down for a couple of hours, you're done. You lose it all. I tried it, and no, I am not an advocate. Not on an individual basis. If you could get a bunch of people in your neighborhood and there's an empty lot, everybody pitches in, and yeah, maybe. But for Texans, forget it. It's too damn hot down here. It just won't work.
Okay.
That was kind of a part 2 to that question, but I guess it's mute now.
All right. Next question.
Okay. It's another question about pemmican. I hope I said it right that time. Pemmican was made by the First Nation. I assume they mean nation. I don't know.
First Nation. It's a Canadian Indian tribe, or basically they call them the First Nations. Were the Native Americans.
Okay. To serve in the, I'm assuming it's winter, but they said winter. Living in Canada, would it be good to have some on hand?
Well, if you're up north, of course. Now, do you realize it will go rancid? Its storage life. I would vacuum pack anything you're going to put in a freezer. By the way, folks, if you're going to put something in the freezer, you either put enough water in the Ziploc bag, so to speak, so that it's encased in water before you freeze it, like fish, meat, as far as beef and pork. Buy a vacuum packer and vacuum pack it. It will stretch the time. It's good for a long time. And I would suggest vacuum packing the pemmican if you're going to store it. But where it's not pleasant to eat, look at the ingredients. It's a survival food. It's not something yum yum good to eat, huh? It'll keep you alive if you didn't kill anything in the meantime. And that's what it was for. I would blow that whole idea off unless you're really looking at survivalist versus prepper. There's survivalists and there's preppers. Survivalists, 9 out of 10 people have never really tried it. And it sounds good, it looks good, where they watch TV, but get out there among the bugs and all that. And up north up there, let me tell you something. Oh, well, we don't have bugs up there. Yeah, tell me about the mosquitoes. Eat you alive come fall.
Sure. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and for those people that haven't asked questions yet, we're gonna go ahead and cut off the questions there. We've got a couple more questions in the queue to be asked, and then we'll kind of go from there. And it's kind of funny you bring up the whole difference between survivalists and the preppers. I keep on thinking of Bear Grylls, where he always talks about trying to drink his own piss all the time, and then they found out later that all that stuff he was doing, like he were eating full meals and everything else, that it was all like staged
reality TV. That's
yeah. Exactly. All right, Lily, next question.
Okay, for DDJ and the guest, considering we don't know when things will go south, would you advise people currently living in the city to move out? For those who don't, how could you be of value to possible communities?
I think that, at least in my opinion is this, I think that you should move out as far as you can and still be able to maintain your job or your career or your current situation. I mean, obviously, the farther you move out, the longer your commute. And one of the biggest challenges in living in a smaller community is that they don't necessarily have the traditional economic stability that an urban center is going to have. So you're not going to have the jobs, you're not going to have the high wages, you're not going to have the career opportunities that you would have in those places. So I would say that, if you can move out, definitely do so. And if you have the ability maybe to get maybe like a summer cabin or something, if you have to live in the city, then maybe you can do something like that as well. And then that way you at least have a bug out location, or at least, you're in a smaller location. My personal opinion is that the smaller community that you can live in, the better it's going to be in a like a natural disaster or a situation where you have to put your prepper skills to use. Chuck, what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I agree, especially with the first half of what you said. Don't be in the rat warren. If it's too vertical, if you have people living on top of each other, yes, definitely try and move out to where people are all living at ground level. The more vertical that you have people living around you, the more people who are going to be trying to kill you.
Yeah, they're going to be eating each other.
Yeah, the zombies will be coming. And so if everything is at flat level, that's another good judge to me of sustainability. But I take it one further and say, look at the size of their yards. Stay where it's all what you can do. What do you do for a living? This is very complicated because everyone's an individual with our own sets of skills and abilities and opportunities. Some opportunities you can take anywhere. My skills, I can go anywhere.
Right.
I'm a remodeler, for God's sakes. I weld, I build houses. I can do any damn thing, seems like. So I can almost go anywhere. But some people have to be where there's an employer. And if you have to have an employer, your options are limited. But do what you can. Go out and look for the community that you want. If you want to find them, you'll find them, and they want to find you as well. They really do. I know I'm not the only guy in this country who has said that, there's people in the city who are great folks who need to be able to get the hell out of Dodge in a real hurry, and need to be mated up with people who don't have enough people to have perimeter guard.
Right.
So.
Well, there you go. All right. Next question.
All right, lucky last question. We kind of sort of touched on this earlier, but just as a recap, are solar panels worth the investment as a prepper?
Nope. Again, back to the battery. Show me the battery that we have. The Edison battery, someone started to make them, which was called the 100-year battery. Someone claimed that they were going to be, bringing the nickel iron battery back. The Edison battery, that all you had to do is rinse it out, and essentially the electrolyte was orange juice or citric acid. And they collected a lot of money from people, and the government shut them down to keep them.
Let me ask you this, Chuck. What if you live in a place that has a lot of sun where you don't necessarily need the battery storage?
Doesn't matter. You've got to store it. It doesn't matter. You've got to store it. You can have your entire house covered with solar panels, and it'll just barely run your house. Even the technology we have has not produced far enough, and the minute you have a couple of cloudy days, nighttime, all that, what's going to store it? It's all in the battery.
Got it. Okay. That's what I was.
$15,000 for a 2 banks of 2 volt, batteries all chained together. You're looking at $15,000, and I have yet to have any beat me in that discussion when I say, how does this pencil out? Right. The lead acid battery is, as long as it's a lead acid battery, forget it. The nickel ion that they have today, it's better, but it's not there. The new one that they've been coming out from Tesla, I'm looking at. Trust it, spend my money on it? Not a chance. Not yet.
Well, I'm not
No.
a fan of Tesla, so I get it.
Install a wood burning fireplace in your home instead.
Okay. Well, Chuck, I really appreciate you coming on the show today and kind of sharing your opinions on prepping and your philosophies behind it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and make sure you check out my sponsor, The Dollhouse. The link will be in the description of the video when it's uploaded to YouTube. And I hope everybody has a great afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Take care.
Great fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.